the costs from a point of view of potential negatives outweigh the benefits when there's other drugs that you could use as alternatives. Also, you've got estrogen from test, you've got estrogen from Deca, okay, at a lower rate, and then you've got Tren increasing estrogen sensitivity, and both Tren and Deca increasing prolactin, and lowering dopamine, and affecting GABA, and affecting 5-HTP. So you've got a real mix of compounds there fucking with your mood chemicals that isn't always the easiest to tolerate, but that will depend down to the individual themselves and how well grounded they are within themselves. But I would stick to one.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast with Dave Crosland. I'm Scott McNally, and all of our programming is brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support. We're brought to you by evalbloodanalysis.com. You can get your lab work done by Dave. Guys, if you'll notice, Dave yawns while I do the intro. Literally every episode. I've been watching it when I edit. Every episode, we talk for 5 minutes, we do the intro, and while I'm doing the intro, he yawns every freaking time.
I can't, at the moment, honestly, man, I can't stop.
evalbloodanalysis.com. Guys, you can get your lab work done by Dave if you're in the UK. We are brought to you by stromsports.com. That's Strom Sports Nutrition. And we just heard that they're opening up a training center is what it is, Dave. One of our listeners, Matt, said it's going to be opened right across the street from the shop where he works. So they're going to have a gym that they're putting in there. If you're in the UK, you guys should go check that out. I don't care where you live in England. It's no more than a few hours away from where you live. So go check it out. It's not like the US where you have to drive 5 days straight to get to the other side of the country. And we are brought to you, of course, by truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there, and supplementsource.ca for Canadians. They have great deals that change week to week. Dave, what's going on, man? Am I right?
Not much.
Am I right, though? Like, if you live in England, it's only going to take you, like, at the most 4 hours to get to the other side of the country.
Top to bottom, no. Side to side, yes.
Okay. But in general, like, if you wanted to go to London right now, how long would it take you?
If it wasn't for traffic, I'd probably do it in about 3.5, 4 hours.
Okay. And if you wanted to go to Liverpool right now, how long would that take you?
From me, just over an hour.
Okay. And if you wanted to go to Scotland?
Scottish border, 3 hours. Glasgow, Edinburgh, 4 hours, maybe a little bit more. I've got to go to Aberdeen in a week and a half.
What's there?
That's about 8 hours. I'm doing a seminar. So it's a Granite Bodybuilding show.
Oh.
And I did a seminar there last year, and they've asked us to go back and do another one this year.
Nice. Guys, for those of you who aren't aware, maybe you're tuning into the show for the first time, Dave's an expert witness for the UK court system, testifying in, you're not anymore, you quit?
No. I haven't done any defense work for absolutely ages.
It's been a little while. You told me about a case not too long ago that you were reviewing. Dave does an expert witness related to anabolic steroids. He's done education for the UK police and military, and he's hanging here with us today. If you don't know, Dave was like 400 pounds at one time, and a lot of it was muscle. Like he was a good 340, 350 lean, but he might have been 400 plus pounds at one time. And because sometimes we get people asking, like, who are you guys? And my name's Scott. I'm a coach. I've been doing it for literally 15 years now. We're here to just share our experience, our education with you. And we take your listener questions, most of them related to PEDs, but we're also a stuff podcast, drugs and stuff. We'll answer your stuff questions too. We generally have some good stuff questions. But to talk about gear-related stuff, you looked something up this morning, which I find kind of comical. What were they? The most Googled?
No, the stupidest Google questions about steroids.
Okay, is that what they were titled though, or are they just like the most common?
No, they were titled the stupidest questions asked about steroids.
Okay, so what did people Google? Let's hear a few of these.
Can steroids make my penis bigger?
Naturally.
Well, I suppose Halo to a small extent.
Yeah.
If I take steroids once, will I instantly become a bodybuilder?
Yes. Overnight.
Definitely. Yeah, without doubt. You'll
Overnight.
Just inject and wake up in the morning and look like.
Listen, I'm not going to lie, Dave. When I took my first cycle, which was 15 milligrams of D-ball, I gained an incredible amount of weight on this. And I was like, and this is next to nothing. So if I were to just do this a few more times, I'm going to look like Arnold. I really thought that, man. No, and there are a lot of non-users that think that too. They're like, I could look like that too if I took the same stuff he did, Yeah.
Can I drink anabolic steroids like a protein shake?
Kinda. Yeah. Some of them, like you could.
I've done water-based Winnie before orally, so yeah.
I mean, orals. If you put the pills in there, or whatever, you technically could drink a Winstrol shake, I suppose.
Can I rub steroids on my muscles and get jacked?
I can picture somebody asking that actually. Like, can I? If I were to like do this, do I have abs then? The next day. You wake up, you got abs. Do your biceps tomorrow.
Will steroids make me taller?
No. If anything, they will close your growth plates sooner if you were still growing, right?
So, my understanding, this has been steroid stunting growth and skeletal development has been something that's been touted as a side effect. But my understanding is that though elevated testosterone levels do part of the signaling for bone closure, it's not the only thing. There's several other things that need to be in line as well. Yeah. So how impacting anabolic use is around preventing further skeletal growth seems to be a bit unknown. And to be fair, I suppose we could all go get a load of 14-year-olds and fill them full of gear and see if they stop growing.
Ooh, we don't say that on YouTube.
Don't we? Oh, sorry. Sorry, no. YouTube. Okay, we wouldn't do that. That would be terrible and very unethical.
We wouldn't. But there are people out there who say have a lot of money, their kid plays basketball, and they are doing growth hormone treatments to get them taller. They aren't necessarily, like short in stature to begin with, but they're saying, hey, let's get my child an advantage here because or they just want their kids to be taller. That is a legit thing that's happening using growth hormone.
That's what an anabolic steroid does, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I take steroids and not work out but still get ripped?
Oh, we should point out too.
Example. Yeah. Shredded me.
Hey, we should point out too, Dave, that it that only works, the growth hormone thing, if your growth plates have not closed, right? Like once they've closed, you're not going to use growth and grow, to 6 feet.
I believe it can be quite painful as well if you administer growth hormone in a developmental stage.
Yeah, I imagine, man.
The thing of growing pains becomes very real.
Yeah.
Do steroids make me aggressive like the Hulk?
Some people. Do you get aggressive when you drink? Because if you do, you're probably going to get aggressive if you take Tren too. You know what I'm saying? Do you already have a domestic on your record? If so, you may more likely get aggressive when you take gear, if you haven't worked on that.
Can steroids make my voice sound cooler?
Way cooler. Way cooler. Will steroids change my voice? If you're a girl, it could definitely have an effect. Men, we don't really get, even guys that have higher voices, it's not a thing, is it? Like, guys don't really have vocal changes.
A little bit, but not, my name's Sarah.
Yeah. Hey, and it's a thing, man. It happens. And usually what I've heard and what I've seen is it's not that you necessarily get the deepening as much as like you wake up and your voice feels hoarse, for women. And sometimes it's with compounds you wouldn't expect. Winstrol is kind of considered to be one of the safer steroids, but it's notorious for creating thickening of the vocal cords for women.
Can I buy steroids at Walmart or GNC? Yes, they're in between creatine and whey protein.
That creatine, you got to look out for it, man. Hey, technically, if you have a script, you can get some test from Walmart and maybe some other stuff too.
That's not true, actually. Yes, you can. Yeah. Insulin as well.
Insulin as well.
In fact, you could buy insulin off the shelf at Walmart, couldn't you?
Yes, you can. Novolin R. Regular insulin. You can't get like Fiasp or anything like that, or Lantus.
If I take steroids, will I still need to go to the gym?
Here's the deal. If you take steroids, and you enjoy working out already, you're gonna like working out even better. That's really what it comes down to. You know what I mean?
Can I snort steroids for faster effects? Well, technically you could snort a crushed up oral. I wouldn't recommend snorting test nth. That might end up quite messy.
Hey, have you ever heard of anybody who's done this? Because I know somebody who was told to do this.
No, I haven't. You genuinely know somebody that did this?
I know a guy who was at my local gym, and his coach told him that's how he wanted him to take his Halo. He was like, you'll get a better effect from it. More of it will reach your bloodstream and blah, blah, blah. Listen, if you start, and he was just like basically taking, I don't think they had the powder like Raws. I think they had pills. That's not going to be good on your nasal passages. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to be ideal. You're going to get plenty of Halo just taking it orally.
Anabolic bogies.
Yeah. Yeah, don't do that, kids. Don't do that at home.
Will steroids make my sperm super powerful? Now, surprisingly, all my kids have been conceived when I've been on full-blown cycles, so I'm going to say yes, it will. No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we know, though, that the opposite is generally thought to be true, right? Like, we usually see a drop in sperm count. But maybe it's that they just kill off the weak ones. You know what I mean? And the strong ones get even stronger. They're kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Sperm. You know what I mean? They're like the super. You get some Tren in there, man. Any sperm that's going to survive is going to be a pretty damn good sperm. You know what I'm saying?
I disagree. Looking at my kids, I think it's severely damaged the mental aptitude of that sperm.
Hopefully they don't listen to the show. Hopefully none of them are in the office right now.
Very much handicapped after the introduction to anabolics. By the way, if anyone wants a child, I've got 2. You can have them free. Honestly, I'll even throw in a dog a case of dog food or something with them.
All right, let's hear a couple more of these, and then we'll get on to our questions.
Okay, I'm trying to find one that's a good one because some of these are a bit right. Okay, if I take steroids and flex really hard, will my veins pop out permanently?
Oh, Dave. So we do get asked about vascularity. You know that, right? Like that's a question that comes up. It's kind of genetic, vascularity. Some people get more vascular than others. Like Jay Cutler never had a super vascular physique. It just wasn't part of his look. But you take another guy, man, and some people I tended to get super vascular and never was the size of Jay. But if vascularity was judged, man, I beat him in that stance at least,
I only know of one compound that has a direct impact on the visual look of vascularity, and that's AMP5.
Oh, okay, AMP5. Are you talking about like
the veterinary vasculator? Yeah, you have to take it with shitloads of carbs. Veterinary drug.
Yeah, is it? It's on the tip of my tongue. Somebody else is probably thinking of the name of it. AMP5. I know what you're talking about, though. And not N-acetylcysteine. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Somebody at home, somebody in the chat, go ahead and write the name of the compound in. People would use it before a contest. They'd take like one shot of it.
And it requires a shitload of carbs.
Does it really?
Yeah. So it's, and you know what I'm like for saying words, it's adenosine 5.
Adenosine monophosphate.
Thank you. It's a nucleide that plays a role in energy metabolism.
I've known people who will take it before a show. Skip has had experience with that, and it doesn't make you feel good. Like you take it and you go down, and you got to be careful with that stuff. But then after you come back, you're vascular. So I don't have any experience personally.
I've not used it personally. I know of someone who used it, and Jesus Christ, even their top of their head was vascular.
Yeah.
Oh, it was to the point where it was abnormal. You know what I mean? They looked alien. It was that bad.
Real quick, when I'd get in good shape, I had a ton of vascularity. But I will say this, that as we train, we improve the blood flow to the muscle, and we do create new, our vascular system also grows too, and that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. You will have more vascularity than somebody who didn't train. So it is something that will improve over time if you were to somebody who wanted more veins,
At the end of the day, that tissue's got to have a blood supply, so the network has to improve to supply it. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Right, last two. Can my dog take steroids and get jacked too?
People do that too, man.
I know. And the last one, can I buy steroids at 7-Eleven?
It depends what 7-Eleven and who's working there at the time. Oh, God. Wow. You can get Cialis basically from 7-Eleven. They have all of those intimacy pills, boner pills by the counter, and they're finding, we talked about this a few years ago, there was one that they were like, this is getting taken off the shelf because it literally had like Viagra or Cialis in it. Like they're not even messing around, man. It's not like an herb that has a similar, vasodilating effect. This is literally like they had drugs. But the idea was they're like, well, we'll sell it for a while. Then the FDA will give us a warning and then we'll stop selling it. We'll change the name of the company, and then we'll sell it again. So.
Someone in the chat's just put that they don't feel that carbs are needed to work with AMP. Now, I've always found that it works so much better with carbs.
Yeah?
Yeah.
AMP, no carbs needed at all. I'm not sure. I can't tell you. I can tell you this, that the more carbs you have in your system, if you're peeled up into a point where you spill, those carbs are going to help with vascularity, and fullness. So I could imagine that I would want them, but I don't have any personal take on it. So,
yes, Matt Morrison, I am.
What's Matt Morrison ask you?
If I'm still doing 1-to-1.
Okay, yeah, of course you are, right? You're talking about coaching?
I'm assuming so. Maybe he just wants sexual favors, which, if the money's right, we'll discuss.
$10 is $10, guys.
It is, right, mate. Supercharger.
It's a lot of $10 to get a supercharger. All right, what do you say we dive into our listener questions, Dave? And by the way, people enjoyed our episode last week. They really enjoyed having Ryan on and telling his story, man. Dude, that was incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you. It's cool to have him on, though, and he seems like a nice guy. Like, he seems like he's laid back, cool, genuinely, like, wants to help people and stuff, and I feel like he fit in with us really well, Hey, one thing we did get asked, by the way, kind of a follow-up. I think Ryan had a really good point about not necessarily wanting to crush SHBG. So it kind of got people thinking, and I had mentioned myself, like my SHBG gets too low, I don't feel good, and basically my training and excitement is over until it comes back. So the question was raised, how can we increase SHBG? It was kind of echoed a few times through the chat last week, so I figured I'd maybe bring that up to start.
So it's difficult from a point of view of combating the effects of stuff like Proviron or Primo that are particularly effective at lowering SHBG. So obviously, limit the exposure to those types of drugs is one aspect. Elevated estrogen will drive SHBG up. So there can be something around where you and how you manage your estrogen. I think it only really starts to get a problem when you start going into single digits, particularly, like low-end single digits. Most people from that I've seen, if they're sort of 10, 12 or in that 10 to 20 range, they generally don't seem to do too bad. But when you start seeing it down in the 4s, 5s, that's when it seems to start to have a negative impact.
Yeah.
The thing is, the role of SHBG is to transport the hormones around the body. I mean, it's part of what it does and drops them off. Now, when those hormones are bound within that SHBG, they are still decaying. Their half-life is still active. They are still lowering, so they're not active in the body. But I've never understand this obsession with trying to lower SHBG more. People added Proviron in a cycle of anabolics. So I want to bring my why? It's going to be low anyway. I mean, you're going to be sub 20 if you're on anabolics pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Alcohol can increase it as well, but I'm not suggesting we all go out and get pissed to bring us SHBG up. But, there are a few factors that play into it.
High estrogen.
Yeah.
Estrogen. So. And the way Victoria put it was, she was like, if SHBG were an Uber driver, it would prefer to pick up an androgen. It will more likely pick up an androgen first. But if your estrogen is higher, then it will be more likely to attach to estrogen. And therefore, I think that's the way she put it, which is a nice little analogy. Keep it real simple. Higher estrogen could potentially benefit you. But I imagine, man, you're going to be up craps creek if you're using a bunch of if you're on the traditional 1-to-1 test to Primo nowadays, you know what I'm saying? As long as your Primo supply is still good, you're going to have a hard time getting that estrogen to make a real big difference and bringing it back up. Yeah. Right.
No, I agree. Yeah. And a lot of that is around the drug choices you make and how you structure your cycle. I mean, the other thing is that obviously, if SHBG is super low, you're actually restricting the movement of androgens around the body. Because just what its job is. Its job is to move the shit around the body,
Yeah. Yeah, we used to be in the mindset that you wanted to keep it as low as possible because that would allow you to have more free test, and the free test is what we want. But yeah, I think that we're starting to recognize, and as far as Scott Stevenson has gone on that, because he's talked about this, man, probably 8 years ago now, he did a talk on the benefits of SHBG and that it may not be just the binder that we once thought it was. So anyway, we got a bunch of questions here. Let's start up with this one, because I think it's something everybody has to think about if they're doing their labs on cycle. These days I see people with crappy cholesterol jumping on gear, and then they wonder why their heart issues are so bad. Would you not advise people to not jump on gear till they fix their cholesterol without statins? What do you think of that statement?
The cholesterol argument is an interesting one. There's plenty of people out there that have argued that the cholesterol is nowhere near as significant in cardiovascular risk as we're led to believe, and even the heart associations have not ever been able to successfully put up anything that states that cholesterol will lead to greater cardiovascular incidents. There's no stats on that, I believe. Having said all that, I do truly believe that my plaque build up, which resulted in a narrowing and a heart attack, which then resulted in a stent, is because of cholesterol mismanagement on my part. Now, I never had high LDL, but I did have low HDL.
Okay.
So my actual fat intake in my days of pushing hard was actually quite low, and as a result, my LDL was always pretty decent. But what I didn't do was manage my HDL. I didn't think I needed to, because my LDL was always good.
Yeah.
That plaque's come from somewhere, and obviously that's where I'm putting it down to. So there is a lot of argument around this, but my approach to this is I would rather manage lipids and be wrong than manage lipids and, than not manage lipids and be wrong. So at the end of the day, if I manage lipids, I'm not doing any harm. There's not a negative to that. If cholesterol is playing a significant role in cardiovascular health long term, which I think it has a role, then by managing it, at least I'm safeguarding against that potentiality. And if I'm wrong about that, then it doesn't matter, does it? I've not caused a problem, but I definitely would potentially cause a problem if I don't manage my lipids.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a client who just got his labs back in the last day or two, and we found that his HDL was going down. And we started a cycle, I think, about 8 weeks ago now. We don't have any DHTs in there. So we're seeing it's going down. We're taking actions to try to combat that. Speaking of, we mentioned Strom earlier, do they have any kind of cholesterol support? Because I know that that's really popular with the ancillary type supplement companies, to have a product.
They have a product called Lipid Support, which I believe, is citrus bergamot, krill oil, liposomal vitsi, and lysine. So it's got Pauline therapy in it.
Okay.
But yeah, now going back to the original question, adulterated lipids.
I had a little more to say though. Hold on a second.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
So what I was going to say is that so he's already taking products like that, and at this point we're pushing upward. We're working on gaining some size, and the next step is that since he's eating mostly a high protein, high carb diet, we're adding some healthy fats in because he already has all the supplements in place, you know. So we're adding in an option to have salmon for one of his meals, you know, and I feel like eating a fatty fish is going to be way more beneficial than taking like a fish oil cap. I've always seen in results that having that fatty fish in there is more like the actual real food. In my gut, I feel like that's more beneficial. So we're adding that in as an option, and we're adding in a variety of healthy fats, 2 other 15-gram sources, and we're using things like olive oil or avocado oil. And avocado oil, I guess, is supposed to be pretty similar to olive oil, but olive oil has like way more studies, like 15,000 studies versus like 300 on avocado oil. So they both are supposed to be good, but I would say don't just use one. And then we're adding in nuts as an option too, like almonds and walnuts. But we're also too, I told him don't use roasted, because a lot of times we get the almonds and they're like, you know, roasted almonds, and sometimes the fats can be degraded when that happens. So if you use like raw almond butter is good. Anyway, so we're doing that. We're going to see what happens. And then the goal is going to be that he takes a break period for 8 weeks before we start his contest prep for the end of the year. My goal is going to be to see what we can do to really try to ramp that HDL back up during his downtime, because you've said it before too, that I think the benefit is like, or the game plan is try to get it built up while you're off cycle, because it's and then maintain as best you can on, because it's going to be really hard, I think, for him to rebuild that HDL while he's in the middle of a blast, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to be fighting a losing battle to an extent when you're trying to bring HDL up in a heavy anabolic environment. The fish in meals has a two-pronged thing, though. It's not just the fact that you're getting a healthy source of fats from the fish. It's also the fact that you removed some animal fat from the meat that you replaced it with.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's a double edge there, because you are actually going to lower LDL slightly as well as increase HDL at the same time. On fish oils, krill oil is a much better option to fish oils. Fish oils are triglyceride based, and the body doesn't particularly absorb that really well, whereas krill oil is phospholipid based, and the absorption rate is much greater. And there's some really interesting studies on how much more effective krill oil is at getting it into the cell and into the body where you want it. But yeah, I mean, I just think it makes sense to manage, your lipids in a sensible way. Now, I wouldn't say so much where your HDL or where your LDL is. It's more of how those two balance with each other. Because one puts cholesterol in the bloodstream, one takes cholesterol out. So it's the fact that they balance is much more crucial than having, if you've got high LDL but you've got high HDL, that's a better scenario than having normal HDL and high LDL, because you've got at least some offset of that in and out process that's happening with those two carriers.
Yeah.
Going back to the individual question, if you've got adulterated or unideal cholesterol levels, generally that's going to be a lifestyle issue. It's going to be either alcohol intake or it's going to be dietary based. So obviously improving those in lieu of before going on a cycle is definitely a positive thing to do. There are individuals that have a genetic situation where despite having good diet and such like, they're still going to have adulterated lipids. I tend to find that these people actually seem to manage. It's almost like their body's built to compensate for the fact that their lipids are going to be out of whack. And they don't appear to be really substantially more at risk than somebody who is normally okay. It's only when those cholesterol levels are a mess from shit diet or alcohol being the other big driver for LDL, that the problems come. But I don't buy into this cholesterol isn't important argument, even though there's a lot of people that go down that route. I do think it's worthwhile just playing it safe on that front, because it's not particularly difficult to do anyway. You know what I mean? A healthy diet supports healthy cholesterol, and the healthy diet supports your growth. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, really.
I've heard some reports of SLUPP332 or the SLU as having a positive benefit on cholesterol. I'm going to do labs tomorrow morning, so I'm going to do some fasted labs. Yeah, I'll let you guys know, because I know where my cholesterol was before, and my HDL's been good now, man. Like, it was plummeted during the time that I competed for about a decade. It was hard to get it above 25. It would stay there. I'd fight to get it to 30, and then it would come back down to 25. And now I'm like in the 40s, not a problem. So, it's a lot better than it was. Hey, question from the live stream. One of our new Patreon people, DK Technology Solutions, he says, how much will clen help with fat loss?
Depends on how much of a calorie deficit you are. The easiest way of thinking of clen is it makes fat available for use by the body. So you just then need to create a need for your body to use that fat.
Yeah. Key is getting the diet right first. Make sure you're making progress. The better progress you're making, the less clen you need to be able to evoke a good effect from it,
Yep.
All right. Oh, another SLU thing. Can you take SLU with pre-workout drinks? Does it spike your heart rate? So I personally did notice that my heart rate had been a little bit higher, and I even noticed that my blood pressure went up some. I'm not seeing it as much as I did initially in the first couple of weeks, but I have spoke to other people who have had higher blood pressure while using it. So I've been suggesting that everybody make sure that they monitor their blood pressure regularly with it. What else do we have here? How about this one? Okay, there was the SHBG thing. Okay, be interesting if Primo starts getting back to going counterfeit using lower concentrations of something like DHB. Maybe it would be a good idea to switch to Masteron. He's talking about the concept we had last week about having an issue with Primo Raws out of China right now. I don't know, man. Do you feel like they go back to faking it like they did years ago? Because now we have more testing available. I guess some people could get away with it. Some sources could do it.
I think. Oh, let's just look at it reasonably. If you're a lab, let's ballpark figure say that you're shifting 400 units of Primo a week.
Okay.
And all of a sudden you can't get, and that 400 Primo units of Primo a week represents $4,000 to you per week in profit.
Yeah.
And that's been fairly mild if it's a manufacturer to retail. Are you going to turn that down? Or are you going to risk putting something else in just to get you through what you think is a temporary slump in supply? So I'm not saying it's right in any way, shape, or form, but you can understand the thought process. If we just knock this batch out with, let's just send out mass this week to get through, thinking the supply is going to be better the week after or the week after that.
Yeah.
And no doubt the suppliers are promising delivery, left hand over fist, even though it's not coming through. It's not surprising that labs do this shit. Should they? No, should they? They should just turn around and say, we haven't got it. Would you like mast instead? That would be a much better approach to it. But
yeah,
I'm not. I don't have anything against Primo. I just don't understand the fucking industry's obsession with it.
Currently, it's everybody wants Primo now.
I know, it's just like, I'd rather have mast anyway. I think it's a better bloody compound. But
I like it better personally, but
each to their own. But I do think you would have to be a little bit wary of someone that's got a large supply of Primo at the moment from what we're hearing, but that doesn't mean that everyone's saying Primo is dodgy as hell. It's not, and some labs do have reserves of raws. They buy in decent numbers and they do have it held back. So
yeah,
that could be the situation, but there's no way of really telling. But like you say, testing is available to some extent. Unfortunately, mine won't be, but that's another story.
Yeah, somebody asked us about that with so you had been working on gear testing basically in the UK. It's not working out, huh?
It's having somebody. The issue is someone competent enough to run the machines and do it well and be reliable. And I won't. Got the kit, got all the raw standards, got everything, but can I find somebody to run the machine that genuinely knows what they're doing and can be consistent with it? No.
Damn.
So it can't happen. It's just no way. You can't do a service like that and it not be 110% spot on.
Yeah, fair enough, man. And I respect you for looking at it as you would rather take it as a loss versus put out a dodgy, service.
It just can't happen. So if it's not right, it isn't running. It's as simple as that. I'm frustrated, but I've sort of come to terms with it now.
DK had mentioned the guy with the clen question. He said he's in about a 600 calorie deficit. Listen, if you want, my first Ask Me Anything that I did several weeks back while Dave was away on vacation, I went into detail on how I personally use clen, how I suggest clen use. If you want to go back and watch that one, I would, strongly encourage you to do that. If you just want some more insight, there's a lot of different ways to run it. That's one of them. But instead of going more in depth to it here for the 100th time, I'll just say go check that out for sure. And also, Zionic had asked us, where can we order Strom and avoid the $50 shipping fees to the U.S.? At this time, he's not available in the U.S., right, Dave?
No, but he put some up the other day with Strom USA, so I am assuming that it is coming, that there is a distributor in the pipeline.
Okay, cool. Great episode with Ryan. What a legend. Any advice on the next course I'm thinking of taking? Test E, Tren E, Deca, and 2 units of growth, and ideas of dosages, because I've never run this before, and I've heard that you shouldn't mix 19 NORs together. Thank you, Scott and Dave. Love the show. Still watch every night. Big love from the UK.
There's nothing... there's no reason why you can't put Deca and Tren together from a point of view of the drugs. They don't interact with each other. They're not going to create some weird mix within the body.
Yeah.
The argument really is, do you want 2 NOR19s that are going to drive prolactin, lower dopamine, and everything else that those 2 compounds do in combination with each other at the same time? I would assume if you're looking at Deca, you're looking at bulking. If you're looking at bulking, Tren would never be a choice for me. I just don't think the costs from a point of view of potential negatives outweigh the benefits when there's other drugs that you could use as alternatives. Also, you've got estrogen from test, you've got estrogen from Deca, okay, at a lower rate, and then you've got Tren increasing estrogen sensitivity, and both Tren and Deca increasing prolactin. And lowering dopamine, and affecting GABA, and affecting 5-HTP. So you've got a real mix of compounds there fucking with your mood chemicals that isn't always the easiest to tolerate, but that will depend down to the individual themselves and how well grounded they are within themselves. But I would stick to one, either Tren or Deca. There's no secret I like Deca, but I would stick to one, even with the issues it causes. But there's I would definitely stick to one rather than throw the 2 of them in there.
Yeah. Oh, Tanya Miller, hanging out with us in the live stream, she said she would naturally have HDL of 100 and LDL of 50 or less. That's like just where she naturally sits, which is, and she said if she takes Anadrol at 5 to 10 milligrams daily, it literally flips. But that's crazy. You wouldn't think of 100 HDL. You know what I mean?
No. Orals are particularly harsh on lipids. Anavar actually increases LDL as well as lowering HDL, so it's got a little bit of a double impact. She mentions red yeast, which is a good red yeast rice is a good support for lowering LDL. The other one is niacin. Slow or non-flush niacin would be my advice. But
Dave, it's the non-flush doesn't work. You want to use it's something in the flush,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it's something in the flush that gives you the reaction. So if you use the non-flush, you don't get it. At least that's what I had heard over the years. I'm
the
flush.
I'm under the impression that slow niacin, which doesn't flush, has some interesting study things around cholesterol. Far-reaching study things around cholesterol. Oh, I'll have a look at that.
If you do, let me know, because that's, like I said, that's what I had heard. I've heard that mentioned by people over the years, but that doesn't mean that I'm like taking that out of a research study. So figure it out and tell me. You do the legwork, Dave. Tell us all.
I will. I don't do it often, but I will do it on this occasion because I'm actually genuinely interested in that one.
Okay. Thanks for putting out such great content. It's awesome to learn about wise PED usage. I have a question regarding what I'll call igniting the anabolic switch. That sounds like the name of a book or something. How much of a certain compound do you need to get some form of muscle anabolism? Here's my experience. 20 milligrams of D-ball and VAR ignite my anabolic switch. 200 milligrams of Deca does the same. 150 test does the same. 70 Tren does the same. There are my threshold dosages at where I get some anabolism from them. For MAST, I got zero anabolism even from up to 500 milligrams, and I've run MAST 4 times at the same results. So needless to say, I'm not a fan of MAST. Also, agree with the advice that you don't need to run 4 or more compounds at a time. Only case I would do that is possibly for a contest. He said, hopefully my question makes sense. I guess the question was, how much of a certain compound do I need? That's the only question in there to get the anabolic effect or the ignite the anabolic switch or to get muscle anabolism. Yeah, so he's asking, how much of a certain compound do I need to get some form of muscle anabolism? But then he's telling us that, what's the anabolic switch then, Dave? How do you ignite an anabolic switch? And what is that exactly? I don't know.
Do you need matches?
Dude, no, you just need a little D-ball, apparently.
That's going to be hugely person dependent. And you know, how you feel a compound will depend on several factors within you. I mean, also, I know he said that MAST did fuck all. Well, was it MAST?
Well, and what is it not doing? Like, I don't know what he means, because he's saying that, so if he takes 20 D-ball, if he takes 20 D-ball or 20 VAR, that ignites his anabolic switch. But he's asking, how much do I actually need to grow muscle, I think is what he's asking. Because, okay, I get it. If I were to take 10 D-ball before I train, I'm going to notice that D-ball in the gym. How much is it really giving me benefits? Like all of a sudden now I'm growing muscle. Yeah, I'm probably growing more muscle than I was, but I could definitely, I think, cost to benefit. There is a lowest amount, I guess I would take.
Well, like a minimum effective dose situation. Yeah. But the thing is, the variable here is training stimulus, because we all know that the more on point your training and diet is, the lower doses you can get results with, and the poorer that is, the greater dose you're going to need to see that result. So that plays a massive effect in this, you know, is in how that works. I just done a very quick look at niacin.
Okay, what do you got?
So slow works very well.
Okay.
Flush free doesn't. Now, slow isn't flush free. Slow is timed release, which usually makes it flush free.
Okay, I see.
So, but the flush free is a different form of the acid, and as a result, has shown to be nowhere near as effective. Yes. So Slow is good. Non-flush is not. Regular niacin is good, but you've got to be able to tolerate it.
Okay. And there's been, from what I understand, like with that whole, HDL cholesterol, good or bad for your heart, we don't know thing, that whole side of things, there's been no improvement in all-cause mortality around the use of improving your cholesterol from niacin, but I would still rather have better cholesterol than not,
Well, as that goes back to me, I'd rather be wrong,
right,
and be safeguarding rather than not safeguarding, and then find out, oh shit, I should have done.
Yeah, if I were to even have like heart issues due to cholesterol, I would still rather have said, well, at least I tried to keep my cholesterol up, All right, what else do we have here? Okay, thoughts on using insulin for MMA fighters. For example, using high-dose Humalog right after weigh-ins, pound some carbs, and come into the fight the next day 40 pounds over your weight limit. 40 pounds of low back pumps.
I can see a use for insulin if you've had to do a carb depletion and water drop to make weight, because it's going to obviously help with that nutritional transit.
Yeah.
Coming in 40 pounds over, you're probably breathing like a fucking cart horse and not being able to fucking move in the ring. So I can see that definitely be counterproductive when it comes to performance. But
right,
getting weight back up because you've used a water cut, a small amount of insulin could potentially help there. I could see some benefit there, but fuck me, you don't want to be becoming 40 pounds heavier.
Oh, hey guys, I want to mention to you really quick too, by the way, of course, leave us questions for the next show, but if you're enjoying this show, hit the like button for us, because it definitely helps us to get seen by more people. And of course, leave us comments if you enjoy the show, if you have something to add, or even if you don't. Just commenting is a huge benefit. So thank you guys very much for that. And if you're new here, let me encourage you to subscribe. And if you're subscribed, definitely hit the bell. Otherwise, YouTube won't show you. The way the new system works, they don't show you when new content comes out unless you get that YouTube notification. It's when you're in the app, you'll get basically a little number in the corner. And when you click it, it says, oh, Think Big Bodybuilding put out a new podcast. So anyway, if you don't do that, you might not see us again. How about this one about GH? He says, I know that GH helps with joints, but have you guys ever seen anything about people with arthritis using GH to help combat flare-ups? Thanks, guys.
No, I haven't, and a lot would depend on the type of arthritis as well.
I think he said rheumatoid arthritis.
Because that can significantly... I would more be looking at something that's going to lower inflammation, because that's your main driver with arthritis. So I would look at something that's going to lower uric acid, which is generally elevated with arthritis, and I'd also look at something that's going to lower inflammation, sort of along the lines of glutathione, that sort of stuff, rather than GH. But it depends on like I say, on the type. Some arthritic conditions can affect the tendons, where other arthritic conditions are the actual joint structure and bone structure itself. If it's tendon based, then you may see something from the GH, but again, there's better compounds that are going to be more direct around tendon health, such as TB, BPC, and even Deca to that point. Whereas GH, I don't think is going to be as effective.
Let's see here. So I'm looking at a study that says, all right, where's the start? In addition, GH has been implicated in perpetuating inflammation and pain in adult rheumatoid arthritis. GH is responsible for regulating long bone growth, skeletal maturation, through its capacity to stimulate insulin-like growth factor, growth plate disturbances in short stature in children, resulting in deficits of GH receptors, suppressing... Yeah, I'm not sure, but it just says here, GH has been implicated in perpetuating inflammation and pain in adults with arthritis, with rheumatoid arthritis.
So it's actually a negative impact.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Pro-inflammatory leukocytes. Anything you can do to reduce inflammation would be better, right?
Yeah, as I say, it depends on the type. There are a few types of arthritis that affect tendons rather than the joint. rather than the skeletal tendon. The skeletal frame, should I say? Okay. So it does depend on the type of. I can see GH having a mild positive, but I just think there's definitely more effective compounds for lowering inflammation and supporting if it's tendon based, and if it's bone structural based, then I'd leave GH well out of it.
All right, see if I can get through one or two more, and then we still have Uncle Dave's wisdom of the day, and we've got a special segment about when did Dave meet his wife. No. Hey guys, love the show. Can you build more size with higher estrogen? Not like 200 estrogen, but more like 80 or 100. Thanks guys for your awesome wisdom. I'm 47 and seem to grow better with 80 to 100 estrogen. I imagine he's in the US and the range goes to 40. Yeah, more estrogen is not a bad thing like we used to think it was years ago, right?
No, I don't think it is. There is some argument around how effective elevated estrogen is on supporting muscle growth, but I do believe that low estrogen is not going to be as beneficial towards muscle growth. And it's definitely not as supportive of things like joint structure. Lipids is another one for that matter. We've been discussing lipids a lot this week. So yeah, I would always be sensible where my estrogen is rather than slam it.
Growth hormone. Growth hormone and FGF gene overexpression are linked to the initiation and progression of rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile chronic arthritis.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. I would you know what, do a study like I do, or do a Google search like I just did for research studies, and it looks like there's a good amount of information that he could check out on that one. All right, let's see. We don't have enough time for a lot more. Jake, I like the way he writes this. How long can I run Oxy? 25 milligrams pre-workout 5 days a week before my liver melts out my arse.
17 years.
17 years? Mm. What's the difference between an arse and an ass?
One's a type of donkey.
Really?
And one is you.
Oh, thank you, Dave. You guys ever heard of someone getting numbness in their hands while on test only?
No. Though I do suspect that there may be nerval impingements, so it might be a training-related issue that's been exaggerated because of higher levels of testosterone.
Okay. Oh, Josh S., thank you very much. He says, Scott, long overdue, but thank you for going on Table Talk with Dave Tate. I probably wouldn't have found the channel without that, and I've watched every episode of Drugs and Stuff I can find since then. Thanks for hanging with us, Josh. Dave, did I tell you that we had a guy who was like a computer programmer, I think he said, at the Arnold? I sent you that video of me talking to him, and he said he loves this show. He listens to this show on repeat. He said there's something soothing about our conversations that just puts him in the space he wants to be to like get into his groove at work.
How have you gone on sorting out Monster bringing me over for the Arnolds next year?
Monster?
Yeah, not Monster.
You don't even, first you have to learn their name, Dave. First you have to learn the company name.
Mutant. They're all the same. Mutant. You, have you sorted it? Have you?
No, I don't even know if I'm going to Germany with them.
Why not?
They might not want me. Because I do this show with you. Listen, if I didn't do this show with you, I'd have a better reputation in the industry. But they see me and they're like, oh, he's the guy who does the show with that other guy who was from the Under Construction movies. We don't like him.
Well, actually, Germany would be closer for me, so it would cost them less. So, yeah, I'll just come to Germany instead. Go on, get it sorted.
All right, I'll talk to them after the show.
Yeah, you better do.
Hey, so what was that question we had at the very beginning of the show from the Real Report? What's up, Real Report? He says, Think Big Bodybuilding Live. He says, how did Dave meet his wife? And also, we have Uncle Dave's wisdom. You guys can't forget about that. I know Dave didn't. He's been thinking about it since last week.
No, he fucking hasn't. Well, I suppose okay. So I used to work the doors. As a bouncer, doorman, whatever you want to call it. I was married. It wasn't that the marriage was particularly bad, just it wasn't right. In the sense that we weren't two people that really should have been together. But it wasn't like there was fighting or arguing or all that crap. It just wasn't enough commonality between us. I met my wife on the doors. The truth is, she pursued me, which I eventually succumbed to. We had an affair.
Oh, okay.
The affair resulted in her getting pregnant with my eldest, Charlie. I wasn't in a very good space from a point of view of, I was running a door agency. I was dealing with not nice people a lot of the time in a very old school manner. So there were a lot of things going on that wouldn't be a positive environment for a child to be part of. Mm-hmm. I also didn't feel that I was going to be a particularly good father. And so I, in part, deliberately didn't get involved with my daughter.
Wow. In
part was to protect her, but also, without doubt, in part was I shit myself, and I was an asshole. You know what I mean? I'm not going to use the C word, but it would be a fair description of me at that point.
Okay.
I wasn't a particularly nice person. I was involved in lots of nasty shit. I was doing lots of nasty shit, and the last thing I needed was a kid. I ended up in a second marriage, which was miserable. But I did this because I felt it was what I deserved. So there was a lot of self-punishment going on. There was a lot of self-loathing going on, and I never really forgave myself for what I did. But I also thought that my now wife had moved on, would be in another relationship. Charlie would be brought up by a stepfather, and they would be having a nice life. So I didn't in any way want to damage that. So I kept well away. Fast forward, lots of shit. Ended up in prison. Spent a long time reflecting on me as a person, how I acted, and came to the conclusion that even though I had been an absolute shitbag in a lot of ways, there was only so long I could beat myself up about this. And if I was ever to move forward, I needed to forgive myself and move forward. I needed to be realistic about who I was. Yeah. I needed to accept who I was, and that was the big thing. Being truthful about the person I was, accepting that, and then moving forward from there. So in prison was very good for me. I was in for a long time, and probably longer than I should have been in the sense of what I did.
What was a long time?
4.5 years.
Okay.
Which for VAT fraud was a bit heavy. But at the same time, I needed it. I needed that time to come to terms with me. I needed that time to accept me, to learn me, and to start to be honest about who I was. And from that point forward, I adopted a very honest approach regarding myself, which is why I've always been so open about the drug stuff and what went wrong and what I did to myself, because from that point on, I decided that the way to live my life was through honesty and being honest about me, who I was, my failings, and everything else. I came out of prison into a loveless situation, a shit relationship, and I started to work towards, right, if I can set a situation up where I can leave this relationship, but I don't leave them in the shit, then I can move forward from there. I didn't want to be in a relationship anymore, but I couldn't find myself just walking away from that without at least putting some things in place that would keep them in some level of support.
Yeah.
Opened a gym. Gym wasn't doing great, but it was getting by. And it was like, once this is near financially stable, they can have it. I'll leave and I'll just start fresh. In that time period, it was getting very, very close to the point of me going. My ex was starting to do crazy and crazier things because she could sense this was coming. She knew things weren't good. So she started doing crazy and crazier things, inventing health problems that weren't there, including the big C and various other stuff.
Wow.
In that time, my daughter got in contact. So that was a surprise, but at the end of the day, I went to see her and realized that I still had very strong feelings for her mother. She realized she still had very strong feelings for me, but her intention was to, in her own words, make me fall in love with her and then drop me like a hot potato to basically teach me a lesson. And
you're kidding me. She was gonna screw you over like that, huh?
And I was very accepting of that because I knew there was a risk of that getting into a relationship with her.
Yeah.
My relationship was done. It was just literally I hadn't walked out the house at that point yet, but it was in every other aspect finished. You know what I mean? It was done.
Yeah.
So I knew what I was walking into. I was very much expecting to get shit on, but it was like I have to take the risk. I do deserve to be shit on for what happened, but at the same time, I'm not going to carry on living my life in a state of apology. I am entitled to be happy. I have spent 12 years in a relationship that I didn't want to be in as self-imposed punishment because I didn't feel I could ever move on. I felt that was what I deserved because of how I treated people in the past. I did leave my second wife and did get back into a relationship with my current wife, who was the daughter of my child. And we've never looked back since, and it's been nothing but positive.
I never heard that entire story, Dave.
Yeah, we've had, like any relationship, we've had arguments, but fundamentally we love each other and we respect each other, and we do spend a huge amount of time together because we work together. You know, we run a business together as well as living together and everything else.
Yeah.
And I love her to bits. The ex didn't take too kindly to me leaving.
Sure.
She had 2 kids from a previous that I was stepfather to. They didn't take kindly to the financial impact of me leaving, even though I left them a gym.
Okay.
And there was probably 12 months of a lot of shit flinging and bullshit. But at the end of the day, I know I've done nothing wrong in that scenario. And I'm not ashamed of that situation. They can spin it how they want. I don't really give a shit.
Tanya Miller said, wow, love the self-awareness Dave has.
Yeah, that coming to and I think if you want to spin an Uncle Dave's advice out of this, I think you have to accept your wrongs, but you don't have to live in shame and punishment for them.
Yeah, I could relate to that, man, because I feel like after I got clean, I felt like I kind of deserved to be treated poorly because that's what I earned. That's what I know other people that are like that. I know somebody who just recently got out of a long-term relationship, one of my longtime friends, and she kind of feels like she's a bad person because it didn't work out. She takes the blame and she feels like it's on her, so she deserves bad things. It's only fair.
Yeah, I think you have to accept your role in the negativity in your life and where things have gone wrong. You have to accept, I played a role in that. I had an action in that. But that doesn't mean you're not entitled to happiness. It doesn't mean you're not entitled to a good life. And there's only so much self-deprivation you can do about it. There's only so much you can beat yourself up. And at some point, you've got to accept, look, I made choices. I made mistakes.
Yeah.
There was reasons for those mistakes. There was reasons for those choices. Looking back in hindsight, it's always easier to go, well, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done this. But in the situation, when you're banging heads with quite serious naughty people,
naughty people, proper British thugs.
You make choices. You know what I mean? But there's no denying that those choices regards abandoning my daughter, which is exactly what I did. There's no... I can't sit here and say, well, it was purely for her home protection. Was it? Bollocks. It was also because I was terrified of having a fucking kid, Yeah. I didn't know what to do with it. And I went through a period of making... equally bad decisions, particularly around relationships, based on actually trying not to fuck things up. And when I sort of went, look, enough is enough. You've done X, Y, Z. That's disgusting. That's terrible. But at the end of the day, it's done. Put a line under it. Learn from it and move on. And I think if you learn from it, that's the big thing. It's when you repeat the same mistakes. But if you hide from your mistakes, you do tend to repeat them because you live in the history. Where if you put a line under it and go, right, yeah, that was wrong, that was out of order, but I've done it. I own it. I need to move forward, and you do need a little bit of self-forgiveness, particularly if you've learned your lesson and you're not repeating it.
Naughty lads.
Yeah, there was some particularly there's books written about a few of the people I banged heads with.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. That was a great Uncle Dave's advice too. And look, you didn't even plan on that, huh?
Yeah, life is a way of learning, isn't it?
Guys, check out if you're interested in coaching, you can reach out to Dave. Hit him up over on social media. I'll have a link to his Instagram below. You can reach out to me, McNallyDiets@gmail.com. Of course, get your labs done by Dave. If you're in the UK, you can go to evalbloodanalysis.com to get that set up all throughout the UK. You can get that done. And we are brought to you by stromsports.com. That's Strom Sports Nutrition. As for now, just in the UK. And check out their new gym. It sounds like they're going to be opening up soon. Across the street from Matt's work. You can go visit Matt, fellow listener. Tell him that we said hi. And, of course, we're brought to you by supplementsource.ca for Canadians and truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there. Guys, for another episode of Drugs and Stuff with Dave Crosland, we'll see you soon. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
And thanks, everybody on the live stream. Hustler VJ, I don't see clen as being a great pre-workout for pump. Just throwing it out there to you, man. Sure, Cialis is great. I'd save the clen specifically for fat burning. Just to try to use the least amount of things possible. Save your heart. All right, guys. See ya.